Pod Nation, good to see you again. So happy to hang out tonight. Welcome to the Podioslave podcast. I'm here with the two biggest nerds that I know, Anthony and Tone. How you guys doing tonight?
What up, man? Yeah, I'm a big nerd. You're right. This is true.
Nerd.
Every week we continue to prove that.
Nerds.
Tony here. I'm Tony, by the way.
Nate, you must not know many nerds because now let's give ourselves some credit. We're big nerds, and if you have never listened to us, we are music nerds to the nth degree. So this whole podcast started with the foundation on music nerdery, music research, music industry research, just researching bands, talking about the music we love. And one of the things we love to do in this podcast is interview some of the folks in the bands and labels that we grew up listening to. And so a few recent interviews, if you're just checking us out for the first time, or even if you're a big fan and you're behind on the episodes, we've had Nick Wheeler from All American Rejects recently on. We had Frank Turner. We had, you guys ready for this one? Peanut from 311. Kat Nijmadeen. She's the creative brain over at Pure Noise Records. Who else, guys? Ryan Sinnott from the Distillers.
Yep.
Greg Bergdorf.
Yeah, Greg Bergdorf is a friend of the pod. If you go check our Twitter feed. There's a nice photo of Greg wearing a Podioslave podcast hat. So yeah, he's a friend of the pod.
It's come full nerd circle with that one.
Yeah, totally.
And if you're seeing a theme with those guests, well, there really isn't one because we love all kinds of music. So there's
so true.
We're all over the map. Singer-songwriter, metal, punk, indie, folk, you name it, we're going to cover it. And
bassist. We love bassists.
We love bassists. That's right.
I'm not gonna lie, the bassist seems to be the guy or gal that likes to talk. Like they're into it. They're friendly. They're part of the rhythm section, which you got to be able to work with other people if you're gonna be a bassist, because you got to work in conjunction with your drummer. And today, whenever you guys will listen to this, we had another bassist on, right? We had Phil Lipscomb of the band Taproot, a founding member back in the 1997 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We get into that. We get into a whole lot with Phil. It was almost like it was meant to be that we need to split this into two parts, and sure enough, we're going to. So this is going to be 2 episodes. We're not sure when we'll drop the second half, but there is a pretty good line of demarcation where most of it we're going to get into Phil's stuff today with Taproot and how that all kind of came about, and where they ended up making their hay as a band. And then part 2 will come pretty soon, a couple of weeks. You'll see that one. So that one will be a little more nerd friendly as far as what we typically like to do with many of our guests, is talk about the stuff that they like too musically. So you'll see that one a couple of weeks down the road. But part 1 right now, Phil Lipscomb of Taproot. Check it out. Listen right now. And hey, if you like it, tell a friend, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Phil, thank you for coming on with us tonight. We really appreciate your time, man.
Happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, good to be back together again, all hanging out as a bunch of nerds. But Phil, I don't know if you remember. You probably don't. Probably get that all the time. But back in 2002 and 2005, I saw your band at the Axis in Boston. I don't know if you remember that room back in the day on Lansdowne Street.
Yep, yeah, right down the street from the baseball field, right?
Fenway, yep.
Anyway, yeah.
Right down the street.
I'm not a sports guy, so apologize for it.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not there anymore, unfortunately. But good times there. Saw your band there twice. And similar to what we were talking about before we jumped on here on the air was, catching shows that didn't quite make it to your market. So Taproot for a while, wasn't coming to Portland. So I saw you guys in Boston before you rolled through Portland, and then after, both at the Axis, ironically. But it was
Remember
perfect.
Who you played with?
I think it was Non-Point on the first run.
Okay.
For Welcome, and then Blue Sky Research. I can't remember what that tour. Who
was that during Ozfest? Was that one of those off shows for Ozfest?
It might have been in 05.
It's like Non-Point and oh boy, I'm blanking.
That's right.
It's on the tip of my tongue. The guys we toured with on that one.
I was gonna say maybe Spike 11, one of those bands that used to tour was always paired with Non-Point. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I know the band. I can picture them. There's two bands we were touring with as well. Well, OTEP was one of them, wasn't it?
Oh, might have been OTEP. I think
OTEP was one, and it's killing me. Yeah, I'll pop in somewhere halfway through this podcast and say,
that's perfect.
These guys.
Yeah, we're
actually, now we like that room, man. We had Boston was a good market for us back then.
Yeah, great room to see a show. And then actually, the reason that those shows were so cool is because the first time I saw Taproot in like a live performance format was on a VHS tape that my friend bought on eBay. And it's you guys playing with System of a Down, I think in like 2000 or 1999 or something, in some small club. So it kind of like mirrored that kind of my first live experience to it. You remember that? I don't know if you saw those bootlegs, but it's Steven's.
I never saw that. I actually no, I have. I think we actually probably were the ones recording. I don't know, or one of our friends. That show was our, just a little history. That was our showcase show for Velvet Hammer.
Oh wow, nice.
Our manager Mark Wakefield flew out to see us at that show because they managed System of a Down as well. They got us that gig, and that was sort of our introduction to the LA management scene, you know. And yeah, it was like we had no room. They didn't strike their drum kit. We had like a foot of space on that stage to try to rock out. But it was a good show. We had a bunch of our friends and fans show up, so we had a good showing. We had a good show. But yeah, that was cool. And we were obviously, System of a Down fans back then, or still, obviously,
Yep.
But that, they were right before they really started blowing up.
Yeah. So let's take it back a few years before that. You started in Ann Arbor in 1997. Do I have that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what's it like? How does that come about? How do you guys get together as a band in that scene in 97? I know Ann Arbor's what, like west of Detroit, about 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
College town, right? Michigan's right there. Are you playing college bars? Are you, finding wherever you can play? How's that go?
Yeah. So it started out, our very first show was actually at this, at the Michigan Theater in Jackson. Some, semi friend of mine said, "Hey, I can book a show for you guys." And I was like, "Sure." And we didn't have a drummer yet. We had a drum machine and just me, Mike, and Steve. And it was just an awful show. Like, not having a drummer is not a good idea. It was my first show my first time on stage. They'd been in bands before. Like, I'd actually seen them play in some of their other bands. And but this was Steve's first time singing. And it was a mess. We actually had like 30 people show up though. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, the scene there in Ann Arbor was very college band oriented. You had to either be a cover band or like a jam band or something like that. We had no shows in Ann Arbor for a long time. We would have to go to Detroit, and we would just drive to wherever would kind of let us play. And we'd be playing at 1:30 at night, or 1:30 a.m. sometimes to just to the bar staff and things like that. Just trying to build up any sort of anything, get some experience and just play. And somehow we were able to turn it into something.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was CDs. Like, we were able to burn CDs at the University of Michigan and get those out there and use the internet. We were one of the few bands using the internet and web pages back then. I was able to build us a web page.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a different time. People used to ask me shortly after, like, how do you do it, man? I'm like, it's different now, man. It's the technology, all that stuff changes so fast. But we were one of the few, like I said, use the internet. And what was interesting, they were sort of like these, you remember like bulletin boards?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So on like the bulletin boards, we'd post like our banners and try to get our name out there. And there were 3 bands whenever you'd see like the underground, like polls, like, they put these polls. They were the coolest underground bands you guys know of and stuff. 3 that were always on there, somewhere on the list would be us, a band called Juice, which later became Edema.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Papa Roach.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
So you burned CDs. So obviously you had music at that point. How did you record it? Just in
Woodshed Studios in Ferndale, Michigan. Nope, we didn't have a home studio. We'd go to Woodshed Studios. We'd scrounge together like, a few $100 and record in like 2 or 3 days and put out these really awful sounding demos that, people seem to like something of, and we would use the internet to just send these CDs wherever we could. And one of these little pockets, we had this pocket in Owensboro, Kentucky. Wow. And these kids end up like, we probably like 50 or 60 fans down there just from like sending out our CDs, and they paid for us to come down there, paid for our hotels. We played some like YMCA gymnasium. I don't think we had shirts or anything. We just went down there and played some shows, man. Just these fun little things that we used to do, before the label, for all that stuff. We would just play these random little places. And, I think people appreciated that, because when we finally did get signed and had some, some attention, there's quite a few places that kind of considered us their home, like, yeah, man, we saw those guys, we helped them, build up their whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Being ahead of the curve with the internet is awesome. Like, you really got to think about that. Like, this is where it's going, and obviously look where it's at today. It's everything. I mean, early 2000s, we're downloading stuff illegally, hoping it's the right thing, and now I click 2 clicks and I've got your entire discography on my phone. So to think like, this is how we're going to gain traction outside of where we're from, because you're gaining traction where you're from playing shows. To do it outside of the box like that early, kudos to you guys. Like, that's super smart, and not a lot of bands saw that then.
Yeah, we got lucky. I got lucky. I was going to University of Michigan, and they happened to have computers with internet, and I happen to be a computer guy, so I learned how to mess around with that stuff. And they had the computers to burn them, because back then, it would take so long to burn a CD. So we'd sneak into like the computer lab, and me and our guitarist Mike, we would just 8 a.m. as soon as it opened, we'd take over a couple computers, like 3, 4, 5 computers, and just start burning, and students would be trying to do stuff.
That's awesome.
I could just picture you with one of those spindles of CDs, and people wonder what the hell's going on over there.
Yeah. Memorex and iMation were the 2 we would use, and I remember the iMation ones worked better because we would send people CDs, and some CD players couldn't play them. They'd be all like scratchy and stuff, so we'd have to send them a second CD. Exactly. There you go.
Wow.
For the listener, Anthony just held up one of those CD spindles, and if you're our age or older, you get that.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I'm interested in this utility of making the demos while playing shows. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are all in college at this time, or?
Me and Jared were in college, and the other 2 barely got out of high school.
Okay.
But yeah, we would record like 3 songs, kind of play shows around those 3 songs, sell that CD, and then we'd record like say 2 or 3 more, and then maybe take 2 of the first demos and add it to that one. Now we have like a small EP, but plus we still have the 3-song demo. So we just kind of like started mixing and matching stuff. And so we had like, by the time, by like 1999, right before we got signed, we probably had like 3 or 4 different versions of different things. One was like 10 disc, CD, and then like 3 or 4 EPs, and just different versions of just the latest stuff. But plus you get some of the old stuff, like Again and Again was a fan favorite, and Mirror's Reflection. So songs like that would always be on the next CD.
It's so cool because it just the only other story I can think of that's parallel to this is the band OAR, where they were a college band, and that became their career while they were, obviously focusing on a different concentration in college, and OAR became huge. You guys, same thing. Like, you guys kind of, Taproot was basically a project while you were in school, at least for 2 of you.
Yeah. And what was crazy, well, actually, I had dropped out by then. Now that I think about it, I had dropped out or failed out, to be honest. But Jared was still in school, and I still had an ID for like a semester or 2 where I could sneak in. But then after playing all these shows around Ann Arbor, we finally started breaking into like Ann Arbor, and Ypsilanti's like another college town next to us, where Eastern Michigan is. And so we would play this place called Cross Street Station, and then we worked our way into the Blind Pig, which is like Nirvana had played there and stuff way back in the day.
Nice.
So, it's like a 500 capacity club, and it was probably the coolest place we could play around there. And eventually we started packing up that place. And that was really cool because there's no scene like us there, and we would have the most eclectic group of people, like we had parents would come, like college kids would come, and rock kids would come, that you were, all kinds of people would come, just because, we had just different kinds of friends, and it was sort of like half friends, half fans, and just became like a big family type deal.
That's awesome.
So Phil, I'm curious I'm just trying to like put myself in your shoes. You're probably 19, 20, early 20s. What you personally like from music, but like, are you trying to influence what you like into the band, or were there any like early conversations with the band, like let's sound like this or let's sound like that? I mean, when you get 4 people in a room together, special things can happen. I'm just curious if you had any early goals with sound or influences or anything like that.
Definite influences, I would say. It's hard to, no, we were never trying to sound like anybody, although, our influences will stand out. And I think that's where, I think a lot of, that's sort of the progression of most bands. You're going to sound like your influences, and then you kind of sound like yourself. So, our early influences were, we all liked, certain bands. Like Pantera was a big band we all liked, and Metallica, and heavy stuff like that. But then I know when Korn came out, that was a huge influence on us. That changed the way I even viewed music.
Yep.
And then Limp Bizkit came out, and we were listening to Incubus back then, and Far, and Head PE, bands like that. And so that obviously influenced us, and we wanted to do like that rap rock style, that later became new metal. But we all like Faith No More and Rage Against the Machine as well. And I considered that more like what we were trying to do as well, because I felt like to me, they were like the pioneers of that rap rock style,
Definitely.
So yeah, as far as trying to sound like somebody, we were never trying to sound like anybody, trying to fit into a scene. I feel like as big as new metal got around us, we were kind of stepping away from the rap rock thing when new metal was at its height. When we got signed, our first album obviously had that, but by you listen to our second album, and it's definitely a lot more melodic and singing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you guys had the heavy stuff, but you did melodic, and you weave that in so well, especially on those early records. I mean, throughout, it's not just there, but that's where you kind of started making your hay. So, you said something that kind of stuck with me, and the more we do this, we get to hear these cool quotes, and you saying that. You start off sounding like your influences, and then you sound like yourself. That's awesome, man. Like, I love that, because you pull from all these places, but then you make it your own. And I think you guys definitely did that.
Yeah. And I think, you listen to any band, you listen to early stuff, that seems to be the way it goes, and people give people crap for like sounding like somebody else, but that's just part of the process. You're not trying to, as long as you're not purposely trying to mimic somebody,
right.
It's going to happen organically.
Yeah, I can totally see that in the moment too, because the bands you mentioned, like Pantera, Rage Against the Machine, that kind of stuff, like that is early 90s. You guys like started to get the band together around 97. But you're still seeing bands like Incubus putting out their first record in 97 and kind of molding around that too. But ultimately, like, you're part of the scene. Like, you toured with Incubus, you know what I mean? So it's really cool to see that come to full circle. And just picking those influences, but really, like you said, coming to true form on your own sound based on influences, the current state, but also being part of that movement collectively, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting time in music for sure. And in like 10 years, what we considered classic rock.
Yeah, you're not far away, man.
That is pretty crazy. And it just shows, I guess, it's a testament to you guys that, we're talking with you, almost 25 years later. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're playing to like 50, 60 people, I think you said. You're playing to parents, and then obviously you got a pocket in Kentucky, and things are growing. Like, are you feeling momentum? Like, leading up to the Atlantic signing, are you feeling like, okay, this is different than it was last year? Are you feeling that?
Yeah, we're definitely growing personally, but we also knew, just sitting in Michigan, no matter how much we built it, that's not going to get us the attention, Yep. And we actually had one of our friend of ours. Do you remember Streetwise? You guys remember Streetwise promotions or whatever? Like, it was like they would hand out like CD or cassette tapes at shows. They were part of Velvet Hammer, our management. But anyway, they had this promotion team, and they'd send their kids out to shows, very grassroots style, and just hand out demo tapes. And one of their Streetwise marketers was a friend of ours, this guy Mike Jakubiak, and he actually sent our demo to Velvet Hammer early on, and then they kind of didn't really pay attention to it. But then later, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. There's this guy Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, and so the way that started, we been in College Town. They had those, what are they called? Advanced copy CDs.
Yep.
And so we had seen Limp Bizkit open up for Korn up at the Orbit Room in Grand Rapids, and we were blown away. We like, oh my God, these guys are freaking awesome. And so their CD hadn't been out yet. The CD, we got an advanced copy of it at one of the used record stores because, some college kid probably reviewed it badly and then sold it to the CD store. And so we picked it up, and on the inside it said, "Send demo tapes to this address."
Wow.
So we sent our demo tape to it, and to the address, and like a few weeks later, Fred Durst left a voicemail on our singer's answering machine. Our singer lived with his mom at the time, and just left it on. Now we got a voicemail from Fred Durst saying, "Hey man, I really like your music," and you can hear it playing in the background. And, I'd love to check you guys out. And they were coming to town a few weeks later. So Mike and Steve ended up going to check them out and got to, like they ended up doing this, like going to the signing and being like, hey man, we're that band Taproot. You called me and it's like, hey dude, hey Lethal, this is the guys from Taproot, man. And they ended up hanging out a little bit and, just kept sending him demos though, kept sending him CD, the stuff we were doing. And he kept giving us encouragement, kept saying, yeah, man, you guys are great. You guys are great. And for us, we were excited, but we're like, well, why aren't you doing anything with us? Why isn't anything happening? He had worked with, in the meantime, he had worked with, I think, Cold and Soulfly and Stained. And, looking back, we were not ready. We were still very young, very immature. Our music hadn't gotten to that point yet. And I think he knew that, but we were very impatient. We're like, man, we're ready. So when Velvet Hammer heard of us again and decided to do that showcase with System of a Down, we ended up, obviously going with them, and they got us a showcase with Rick Rubin. And that's where the infamous voicemail from Fred Durst came, because he heard about that and he was upset that we explored other options, which to me, I'm like, that's, you weren't promising us anything. You didn't, you gave us encouragement, but, and you spoke about us and that was great, but you weren't doing anything for us and you weren't giving us a plan. You weren't telling us this is what's going to happen next. So for us to not try to at least explore other options seemed kind of ridiculous,
right?
And
Totally.
and we hadn't decided anything. We didn't sign with anybody. We just talked to somebody else, and it was like he turned to a jealous girlfriend, And we were supposed to play a show or see them at a show like a week after we got home, and that's when that message was on there, and we're like, I guess we're not going to the show.
Yeah.
but I skipped a part. He actually had come to Steve's house at one point, like Steve's small little house with his mom. Steve had like a converted attic that was his room, and here's Fred Durst with his camera recording stuff, and
Wow.
And yeah, it was looking back, it's pretty surreal, especially thinking where they ended up going, how big they got. It's weird to think that he can't, he was at a Subway, down in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with us. And yeah, he was always cool though. He was always cool to us. Wes was always cool to us. We got to hang on their bus a couple times, and yeah, good times, man.
They weren't wrong. I mean, they saw something in you guys because there was some talent there. You know what I mean? Like I understand you wanting to like, all right, we're just talking. He's giving us encouragement. That's great. But there's nobody saying, hey, we want to like sign you guys. So
yeah,
kick the tires elsewhere. Why not? Because you only got to become the level that you guys ended up becoming. You really only have one shot at that. You got to do it. You got to go for it wherever anybody will take you. So for you guys, it makes sense to me. Like I get that. Now, all the other stuff with the voicemail, whatever, I could see it. Maybe he thought down the road he'd bring you guys in, but I get it. I get why you did what you did.
Well, even so, it's like, give us a call, man.
Yeah.
Have a conversation. Right. Say, hey, what's up with talking to Rick Rubin? But that's, we're all young and dumb and have egos back then.
Right.
I'm sure if it were to happen now, we'd all react differently.
Oh, but totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how that goes when you're 20, right? You're like, man, I'm gonna fuck everybody else. I'm gonna do me. Now you're like, all right, I could have handled that a little differently, right?
Yeah. And even we could have tried calling him and say, hey man, we're sorry. We're exploring our options. Lots of people could have done things differently, but
no, totally.
It is what it is. I look at the way things were and the way their contracts, because we did get a demo contract from him eventually. And we just looked at it and we're like, they wanted to spend just a little bit of money for us to record 3 songs with them. And we're like, he had his imprint on Interscope, and we're like, no, these guys, because once we met Velvet Hammer, they were making moves. They were getting us showcases. We showcased for all the labels, which is, sort of like for them, par for the course. Once you find a band you like, you just showcase for all the labels. And for us, it was amazing. We're flying to New York, we're flying to LA, showcasing for like Elektra and Atlantic and DreamWorks and all these different labels. And Rick Rubin was, God, we got to, showcase for Rick Rubin. How cool was that?
Right.
He's a legend.
It's crazy this is all happening simultaneously with kind of like a somewhat offer on the table from Fred Durst. I'm trying to translate it to like 2021. So you're almost like you have a job offer on the table, but your LinkedIn page is getting hit up like every 5 minutes from some offer. And you're like, I got to do something here. Like time is money, Yeah. So around this time, you're going to all these showcases and eventually you settle with Atlantic Records.
Yep. we kind of deferred to we were young and dumb. We didn't know any of this stuff. So we just deferred to our management, we signed with the Velvet Hammer and deferred to their judgment, and they made all the deals and all that stuff. And we just focused on our music. But I thought they did a great job with us. We got, when we were doing our first record, we had this, You Hear It First thing on MTV.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That a shocking amount of people have told me that they've seen that, and I'm like, wow, I did not think that was that big. And we just played these little tiny snippets of our songs, but apparently it was enough for people to get interested.
I remember those. I remember late night this is probably around that time too, probably 2000, 2001, being in high school. We had just gotten cable because we didn't have cable when I was a kid, and throwing MTV2 on, and like late night, you'd get a video from a band that was up and coming that you just wouldn't hear throughout the day anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was like, oh, and then I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is awesome. I can't wait to like find more. I'm going to go to my local record store and pick up a CD as soon as I can, type of thing. So that it did at the time, they were still MTV. They were still trying, even though it was, in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. Cause you had TRL and all that stuff during the daytime and all the super popular pop stuff. But yeah, they still had MTV2 definitely was an avenue to hear some cool new music.
Yeah. I remember Again and Again made a splash on MTV2 off your debut Gift. And I'm trying to think back. I think you said Again and Again was an early demo song. So how is that to come from the demo all the way to MTV when, a lot of the singles are produced in the studio. So you guys wrote that a long time ago. It's like watching a child grow up. It's like, yeah, wow, look at that. We did it. We made it.
Yeah. It's a pretty crazy feeling, even just to put it all on a record. Like that first record is, they say is like the easiest because it's most of the songs you've already written. Yeah. But yeah, Again and Again being on there was really cool. The last song we wrote on there was Now. I remember that. And that was, and yeah, I don't know, man. It was, looking back, it's just such a surreal experience. Just even thinking about all the things that were happening at the time, even just being in LA, like I've traveled around a lot, but just, I'd never been to LA before. Staying at some of those places. I don't know if you guys have been to LA, but it's like there's celebrities freaking everywhere, like everywhere. Our first night in LA, or our first day in LA, we pull up and we're staying at, I can't remember what the hotel's called, but there's like Busy Bone, I think, is checking into our hotel.
Bone Thugs, yep.
Yep. We're walking outside and Tom Green is there, and we take a picture with Tom Green with a disposable camera. And then that night, we're at this restaurant called Chin Chin's, and not literally sitting next to me, but practically because the tables were so close, was Jeff Goldblum.
Wow.
Like literally like 2 feet from me.
That's amazing. Yeah, LA,
Strange,
right?
yeah.
A little different from Ann Arbor, right?
A little different, yeah.
Well, you were in Ann Arbor when Tom Brady was there, so you got that going for you too.
So you're not a sports guy. I know who he is vaguely.
You know who Tom Brady is, though, right? You got to know who Tom Brady is.
He's a
New England guys. We Patriots fans, man.
Yeah. No, he's a goat, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we did a pod last fall where we talked about 3 albums that turned 20 last year, and Gift was one of them. And it's kind of wild. That's now almost 21, right? 21 years old. To look back at that today and be like, and you know what? It still holds up. When we said this 7-8 months ago, and we did it, almost a year ago now, it still holds up really well. Listening to it back again in preparation to talk to you, you guys knocked that record out of the park, and it's no wonder that it ended up, kind of vaulting you to where you ended up being after, with the next record. But damn, that record's just really good front to back.
No, I appreciate that. I look back on it, I'm like, to me, some of the songs are like a little immature, and I'm like, I wish you could have done this better or that better. But that's hindsight with anything, But even sonically, it's weird because people say they love that sound on that record, and for me, I'm like, I like different albums and how they sound. I compare ours to those, and I'm like, it's not even close. But other people go, yeah, dude, it's along with those records, and so I guess it's, maybe I'm just too close to it.
Yeah.
So I like it's cool to hear that, and maybe I'm just being humble. I don't know.
Was that the first time working with a producer? Because I know you worked with Ulrich Wilde, and he has obviously, even at that point, a massive track record. So that must be, pretty crazy.
It's a little nerve-wracking, yeah, for sure.
Going from the demo to this, and it's like, all right, well, now we got a team behind us. This is a little different, right?
Yeah, because normally we would, like I said, we'd spend a couple days like 4 hours in the studio one day, 4 hours in the studio next day. You get a few takes, and then then you're mixing it all together in those same 8 hours. So yeah, it was quite different having time to actually record and just setting up tones and, you know, not having any clue what we were doing. But thankfully, you know, the engineers there did and helped get us, you know, dial us in really well. And we were actually recording to tape back then. And so what I found incredibly fascinating was Ulrich would cut tape and edit that way. Not like in Pro Tools or anything like that. You literally cut the tape. And one of the coolest things, so some songs we would play to a click track and some songs it just didn't work. And Mirror's Reflection, because of the way that tempo changes and that, there was just no way you're doing a click track to that. And one of the takes was, we really liked one of the takes all the way through, except for the bridge, like there's a drum fill in the bridge or something that just didn't quite hit right, but the rest of it was just perfect. And so Ulrich cuts out that section of a different, you know, so he has us play it again, no click track, but he says, you guys have played the song enough. It's going to be the right tempo. It's just going to be the tempo you guys play it at. And then we hit that right spot, and he literally cuts that out of the tape and tapes it together with the other, you know, reel. And it's just like, how do you know, and that's what's on the record. That's what you hear.
Wow. And it works, right? And like for it to actually, like, you're literally like pulling pieces apart and putting them together, as opposed to today, you're just on the digitally, you're just kind of cutting and pasting, and it's not as hard. Yeah,
and it's much easier now, and you can just, you know, if you flub it a little bit, you can just like kind of move it a little bit. But I mean, if you cut that tape wrong,
right, it's over. Yeah,
you know, it's
do
over.
It again.
You know, but that's what he grew up doing. So, I mean, he obviously knew what he was doing.
There's a lot of trust there too. Like, you're young and first time doing it, and here's this kind of wizard, and you're like, all right, I guess he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, we had to trust each other really, and he was great to work with. Toby Wright was great to work. I mean, all our producers, man, we had good connections with them. You know, there's some struggles with some other stuff, but you know, when we get to the later albums, if we get that far, we can talk about that.
This is crazy. I mean, you said you had a few singles. Some of the songs were like re-recorded for this major major
everything.
debut.
Yeah, re-recorded everything.
But a lot of this other stuff was also written during these sessions as well, or?
Yeah, so pretty much I think every song was written before we got to LA to do the record, except for Now.
Okay.
And Now was like, I think in its infant stages, and that's when we kind of fleshed out there, out in LA, if I remember right, like in our rehearsal studio or whatever that was. But we didn't do any real writing, I don't think. We didn't spend a lot of time writing out there for that first record. That came for the next several records. We spent way too much time out there writing.
Well, it's just interesting because you said that, you know, you've been playing these songs. You guys had 3 self-released albums before the major. So it's kind of like your greatest hits of everything that you've written, but also performed. So like around this time, you're signed to Atlantic. Coming with a major also means major tours. So you guys in 2000 got on the Ozfest 2000, right?
Yep. Yeah, actually
nice.
Our first tour ever was with Papa Roach. And that was right when Infest was coming out and right when Last Resort was coming out. So we both started, like, we drove our band out to, I think the first show was like not Sacramento, but maybe San Jose or something like that. I can't remember exactly where. But we started on their side of the country and worked our way to Ann Arbor, like a two week stint. And so we both started out in bands, and like not even a week into the tour, their song was blowing up so big they got a bus, you know. Wow. So then they were rolling in a bus and we were rolling in the van. But those guys, you want to, like, the reason why we got better with our live show was touring with those guys. They had their shit together from go, and we saw those guys. We're like, we thought we were pretty good live, and we're like, wow, we had to step up big time.
So was that right before Gift? That must have been right before Gift, right?
Yep. I think Gift came out in like June, and that must have been like April or May.
And then Ozfest was that summer. So things are popping for the Taproot camp at that point.
Yeah, it was awesome to be on tour with Papa Roach, especially during that time where they were just blowing up. So our shows were packed. You know, it was really cool. And we actually got the headline above them in Michigan, because that was the deal. Despite that, so we got the headline at St. Andrews and at the Blind Pig above them, which was pretty cool.
That's crazy because you're right. They're switching from the van to the tour bus while you're on your way to Ann Arbor, and then they're
Yeah.
opening for you.
Yeah. But that was our fan base, so
Yeah.
it still
Oh,
it
hell
wasn't
yeah.
like uneven where all of a sudden like, wow, we shouldn't have done that. We definitely pulled off our what we need to do.
No, you brought them into your
Yeah,
home, man.
our
Like
home,
they,
exactly.
yeah.
I remember looking at the lineup for Ozfest 2000, and obviously Ozzy, and you got Pantera, who you mentioned. You got, I think, even Queens of the Stone Age, Godsmack,
Yep.
Incubus. Like, is that a holy shit, we've arrived moment?
I don't know. I think we're always so self-deprecating. We've never really felt like we arrived.
Yeah.
That sort of was our style. We've never really had that big ego, but it was really, I mean, Ozfest was so much fun. Just being part of that was, but at the same time, like, it's all hard to have an ego when some days you're waking up at 10 in the morning and playing to nobody.
Right.
You're not really like, oh, we've arrived. Wait,
Yep.
No one wants to watch us. People where they're opening the gates to Ozfest, there's like 1,000 people waiting to get inside that early, and they're walking right by you as you're playing.
Right.
Wow.
And like 10 people will stop and kind of check you out for some of those shows, and then other days you're playing to a packed crowd because you're playing a little bit later in the day. And it was, you ran the full gamut. It was an interesting time.
I mean, it must have been surreal too, right? Because like you went from playing like small clubs to like Ozfest, which at the time I think Ozfest started in '97, so 2000 was kind of like this crescendo. Was definitely getting to somewhere really big. I feel like that was the sweet spot, to be honest. But additionally, some of the influences you mentioned earlier, you're actually sharing the stage with some of these bands now, so that's insane too.
Yeah, no, that was nuts. I mean, we were able to go on like side stage with when Pantera was playing. I'd gone on stage and yelled in the microphone with other guys during like Walk.
Nice.
They would let some of the other bands come on stage during that stuff. Bands like Disturbed's blowing up at the time. There was because we'd gone to Ozfest. I remember going to Ozfest. I want to say '99. I want to say System of a Down was on there. Primus was there, and Jared and I went to that together. And I remember buying some shoes at like Payless shoe store, because I knew my shoes were gonna get muddy. So I'm like, I'm just gonna buy some crappy shoes.
Yeah. And they do get dirty. They get filthy.
Yeah. So I just bought some crappy shoes for that day. But to be able to go to a concert like that or a festival like that, and then to be on a festival like that, pretty surreal. And then meeting Ozzy and meeting the Osbournes, and the whole thing, pretty trippy, man. It's when I look back, it's good memories to have.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So you're doing the Ozfest thing. Obviously, the record's out. You're starting to probably pivot, think about putting out the next one. But you guys kind of did that all at the same time, right? You're touring, probably writing at the same time, and getting ready to record, because that dropped, what, 2 years, a little less than 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years later. So we did Ozfest 2000 and Ozfest 2001. I think the only song we wrote, and Steve wrote really, during that time period was Poem.
Oh, wow.
There might have been one or two other ones, but he wrote Poem. He said, I mean, as he puts it, like in like 20 minutes.
That's crazy.
And what's also crazy was like, we just knew, that song was we just knew it. We would play it on that Ozfest 2001, and it was getting a reaction, and nobody even knew the song. It just had that feel, and it was that something special. And I look back, part of me wishes Atlantic would have pushed harder for that on that song, because from what I heard, they had POD, they had their, a couple bands that they were pushing hard, and then we were sort of an afterthought. And because that's, I guess, the way radio works. Like, from what I heard, it was basically, hey, play this POD song, and then play one of these other songs from pick one of these other three songs from these other three bands that we're also promoting. So I look back, I mean, it never became our, like, I always refer to like last resort, because, we're on tour with those guys, that big everywhere at the same time. So it got them on that next level. For us, it would be like number one in these 5 stations or these 5 markets. And then 2 weeks later, it would go number one in these 5 markets. And 2 weeks later, now it's number one in these 5 markets, but never at the same time.
Yep.
So it never got that, what they call buzzworthy feel to it.
We felt it up in the Northeast. We had a local station that played it. I remember seeing the video on MTV.
All the time. Yeah. All the time.
I mean, it was absolutely massive. And you guys kind of defied the sophomore slump, right? I mean, that's the term. That's
right.
that's the flop after the the successful first album. But
Yeah.
going into Welcome, are you guys feeling like, all right, we got to deliver again? Like, is there pressure? Because I'm trying to put myself in your shoes where it's like, all right, now we have a fan base and now there's expectations. Like, are you in any headspace where you're putting pressure on yourselves or the labels putting pressure?
Well, there's a reason why it took us like 9 or 10 months in the studio or in the rehearsal space to write, I think we were like 80 songs or something for that record, like 80 ideas, I could say. Yeah. So yeah, we felt some pressure. We felt some, like, it wasn't a lot of, well, I'm thankful for, because I've heard this from other bands. Hey, make a song like Linkin Park, make a song like these guys, make a song like that guys, try to sound like this. And we were fortunate to have a team around us that liked our sound. And, we like to write catchy songs. We like to write songs that we felt could make it to radio. We weren't writing for radio per se, but that's the kind of style we liked. And that seemed to be what was hitting. So it worked for us. But yeah, we were fortunate to not have that. But yeah, it was, a lot of ideas, a lot of songs by the wayside. Some songs I look back and I'm like, man, why couldn't that have turned into something more? Some stuff I still feel like I'm like, man, that's a good song.
Mhm.
I wish people could hear that finished version of that.
Yeah. The label wasn't pushing for a Sugar Ray Fly.
Yeah, exactly.
You beat me to it, Twan.
Yeah. Shit.
Thank goodness.
So, yeah, one of our early episodes, I think our second interview was Greg Bergdorf of Zebrahead fame back in the day.
Yeah,
And
I love those guys.
oh man, and Greg is salt of the earth, man. Like we've had him on 3 times. He's come and brought the fire every time he's come on. But we did talk about people coming in, record label, whatever, whoever coming in and saying, hey, make a Sugar Ray Fly. We need that right now. And it's awesome you guys didn't necessarily have to deal with that, because it sounds like a lot of people did. And for you guys to be able to have a camp that was like your sound and what you guys are doing, that's pretty badass.
And that's such a poor way to think about approaching things. Like, that's what's big now. That's not what's going to be big by the time we record it and put it out there. And
Great point.
it just doesn't work that way. But I mean, the figureheads at the radio stations, they don't always understand that.
Yep.
Yeah. Or like, I remember I've heard this a lot where somebody wanted to work with this particular producer and they're like, no, you can't work with that producer. Can't work with that producer. And then that producer works with somebody like Linkin Park. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you guys should work with this producer. It's like, we've been saying that,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And now that guy costs a shit ton more money.
Yeah. Right.
Man, something interesting you mentioned just earlier that I was thinking of is for Welcome. You said that song was written before, and you were playing it before it was recorded, so it was almost like you were road testing that song. That's something you definitely see in like stand-up comedy. You see like comics kind of practicing material in clubs, and then they'll do the arenas and kind of execute on that song professionally. Yeah. The only reason I can think that could be kind of controversial for the label is they want to have that to present fresh, right? So if it's like leaked. And at this time, we're talking 2002, we're talking Napster. Things are haywire with trading and everything, MP3 files and so forth. So, but at the same time, it's a product of your environment because you're under pressure to write an album literally while you're touring.
Yeah, it's a weird way of that, and that I don't know, because we kind of alluded to earlier with our first record, we are able to road test the songs. We had spent 3 years road testing those songs and knowing what worked, knowing what the fans liked, knowing what the fans didn't like. And so then we come up with the finished product, and it's things that we know work and work live. So for the second record, where we're not road testing these songs and then we have to play them live, they don't always work. What we felt would work. There's some songs that I remember playing live and being like When. I don't know if you guys know the song When. We've tried playing that live several times and it just does not work. It's just like there's no way to rock out to that. It just has too weird of a feel. So that one we'll probably never ever play live ever again, unless we do like a play Welcome live or all the way through or something. I don't know. I think that's on that record, right? Yeah.
Well, Welcome has all the one word songs.
Right. So it must be.
I've been listening to music for probably 30 years now, and I don't think I've ever listened to a song for the first time, paused, and then been like, what the hell was that? And I did that about 20 years ago, listening to myself when you guys sample again and again. So
right.
Steven says the line in the new song, and then it's a sample, it's a clip of the original song. So I remember listening to that and be like, wait, what was that? And I rewinded on my Discman, And of course, you never get it right. You skip back to the previous track or whatever. But how did that, like, whose idea was that? It's awesome.
Yeah, well, the line was already in there, part of the song, and I can't even say whose idea it was to sample that, to be honest. But yeah, somebody on our team, I don't know if it was our producer or Steve or Mike or who. I know it wasn't me. I know at least that much. I could say that. But yeah, that was a neat little thing, and I mean, yeah, I love that song anyway. I love like Steve's, sort of harmonizing with the scream during the chorus.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Such a cool little thing.
And so heavy. That first riff, it's like, all right, I'm here for this.
Yeah,
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. It's probably somebody who was like, oh, all these people are going to listen to this on CD and they're going to hit that back button and try to back it up 15 seconds and they're going to go back to the last song. And I like the last song better, so let's mess with them.
Right.
It also reminds me of just the Michigan scene. For instance, Eminem, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of references from the Slim Shady LP that kind of cross over into the Marshall Mathers LP. So who knows? Maybe it's in the Michigan water or something.
Right. I've always loved when bands do that anyway, where you can kind of like reference other songs and yeah, it's always a cool thing.
It's fun to have an Easter egg. If you're a fan of the band and you've listened to everything, whatever, and then you get that kind of callback to something that you loved from whenever it was, you're like, oh man, yes. All right, cool. They still remember that too. I'm happy. This is great.
Yeah.
Well, because it's kind of a risk too, right? Because like, are people going to like this? I mean,
that's all the stuff, man.
Yeah,
everything's a risk when you're putting out your art. It's what are people going to think? What are they going to say? I've always felt if you worry about what people are going to think, then you're not going to be true to yourself.
Yep.
And they're either going to like it or they don't. And I think each of our albums has its own distinct sound and its own distinct sort of style of where we were at that time. But at the end of the day, no matter what we do, it's going to still sound like us. So that's why we didn't really worry about that too much. Because I remember we've actually had these discussions. We would write something, we're like, oh man, people are going to think this is crazy. Like, this is so not us. And the people are like, yeah, it sounds like you guys.
Nice.
Like, really, I'm good or bad. It'll always still sound like us, no matter what we try to do.
Listening to you guys for, 20 plus years now, I totally agree. Whenever something comes on, I can tell when it's Taproot, as opposed to sometimes another band will come on from that era, and you're like, oh, that sounds like somebody else, or it sounds like they're not doing them. They're doing a, facsimile of them or whatever.
Right.
But you guys sound like Taproot. You've always sounded like Taproot, which is awesome. Even when you've changed sounds from record to record. So that's a testament to you guys too, to have your own sound. That's, as we said before, you start with your influences and you make your own. You've made your own.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, Blue Sky Research for me is probably my favorite record of ours. That one, just something about it. Some of those songs like April Suits and Face Peeler and Birthday, certain songs on there just stand out so much to me. And I look back, and even like songs like Promise that have that, a little bit of a different feel for us.
Yep.
But they're still us.
Yep.
And it is a little bit of a risk for some of those, for us to put those out there. But yeah, I've always been a fan of our music. I know some bands like, oh man, I can't stand hearing that song, or I can't stand playing our single anymore. I'm tired of playing that song. I never get tired of playing a poem.
Nice. That's awesome.
It's like, how can you get tired of seeing a mass of people singing your song and enjoying it?
Yep. And you're also getting older as you're going on. So
so are we, man.
So no, but you're not 20 anymore, and you're not maybe worrying about what other people think. You generate your own tastes, and you're also probably getting better as musicians too. So you have all that kind of fusing in. So it doesn't surprise me that an artist's favorite record is not the first record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Blue Sky is a great record. I've been talking Lost in the Woods to people for years. I love that song. Oh man, it's a good record.
Do you know the history of that song? Have you heard the?
No, but if you'd love to give that right now, I would take it and be so happy.
So we got to spend 5 days. That was one when we were working with Michael Beinhorn on that record at first. He's done was it Super Unknown from Soundgarden,
nice,
and other stuff that I'm gonna fail to remember at the time right now. But for some reason, we just did not quite click with him. We'd done some songs with him, and we spent a lot of time, and it just wasn't happening. That magic wasn't there. No offense to him, nothing wrong with us. It just wasn't there. So our label started looking at other options. What else can we do? What else can we do? And they started asking us, who would you like to work with? So we made a small list of people. I think it was like Dave Grohl, Billy Corgan, and a few other people that we were like, yeah, that'd be cool to work with. And so they contacted Billy Corgan, and he was willing to work with us. He'd been working with a few other bands too. So he said, yeah, bring those guys down to Chicago and we'll work together. So we came to Chicago, and I think what came out of that was Violent Seas came out of that. We just had we basically had a riff for that, and he was able to work with that and kind of help us expand upon it. Promise came from that. And I remember him even like getting up on guitar for like the bridge or something and kind of like having an idea there. And what else? I think one other song. And then at the very end, he came in with this skeleton of a song. He said, I wrote this morning. Basically, you guys kind of inspired me. I think it's something you guys could use. And had this, you can actually look this up on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Had this very skeleton version of Lost in the Woods.
Wow.
Had the basic melody, this basic guitar line, and said, that's sort of our homework. Go back to LA and make this into a real song.
Insane.
And so the standard way of doing any song like that, where you just get a simple guitar line and whatever, it's like you play it without anything, and then the drums come in, and it comes in a big chorus, whatever. And, it's like this. We tried it a few different ways, and we were struggling because his thing was so beautiful and pure, but it was very also sparse. And we spent quite a while on that, different versions of it, very generic at first, and then finally we just kind of found what worked, and that's what you hear on the record.
It
but yeah, if you haven't heard that yet, man, you got to look that up.
Definitely.
I don't know what you'd necessarily type in for that, but maybe Billy Corgan Taproot or something. But it was just him. We recorded it at the time. Like, yeah, really cool.
That song it's one of my favorite Taproot songs. And I used to, for a long time, I had an old classic iPod, and I would deliver car parts in college and just like wait for Taproot songs or wait for songs that I was just into in the moment to come up. And that was around that time. And oh yes, perfect. All right, this album came on. I'm stopping the shuffle and I'm going through it. Like this is what we're doing today. And that song was always one that I was like, blast the speakers in the van and roll the windows down and just rock out.
Right. Yeah, we have some fans of ours that always request that song, and every once in a while we'll play it.
Nice.
Crazy. There's a lot to unpack there too. And I was thinking about it, like when you were mentioning how that all went down, it's kind of like the perfect cheat code. Like pretend you're at a crossroads to the label, and then just start naming all your heroes. And you get a writing session before you. It's like the real life The Voice. You know what I mean? Like I want to work with Billy Corgan. I want to work with Stephen Carpenter of the Deftones. I want to work with Jonah from Far. Yeah. And boom, they're like on a silver platter. Yeah, go meet up with these guys. That just must seem surreal in itself.
Yeah, we actually did a song with Stephen, and it was. It just sounded like Deftones, though. We couldn't do much with it.
Yeah.
It was, but it was a cool thing, really cool little riff. But yeah, he just came in, did his thing, and we're just like, I don't know, we didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But Jonah was actually friends with that kid I mentioned earlier, Mike Jakubiak from Streetwise, that was helping promote us back in the day. And I remember do you remember One Line Drawing?
Oh yeah, his solo project.
Yeah, his solo thing where he'd play people's living rooms with that little R2D2 drum machine thing.
You guys would fit in with the early stuff, the drum machine.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we kind of knew him from back then, but he wasn't really into our style of music, or kind of maybe because like Mike Jakubiak was, he kind of like would always give him shit like, oh yeah, your local band or whatever, kind of like. So it's kind of weird to come full circle with him and have him, help write. Like he came up with the chorus for Calling, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's also a song with Steve worked with Nick Hexum from 311.
Nice.
And again, just sounded too 311.
Yeah. I would imagine that's hard. Nick is just such ubiquitous 311 sound.
Yeah. But what's funny is then like a few months later, a year later or something, we get some paperwork saying, hey, Nick wants to use that thing he wrote. You guys have to sign off on it. They say that he wrote with you guys because, he was sort of, when you co-write something like that, there's some intellectual property stuff going on there. And we were like, yeah, wow. Sure, of course. We'll sign it over. We're not going to try to, I have no idea if that song ever came out to anything, but
We live
Man.
for stories like that. Like
Yeah, I
most
want to know what it
casual,
was.
yeah, most casual fans
Yeah, I
like
don't know.
don't know about the IP stuff and the copyright stuff, but we geek out on that stuff. So that's pretty that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very.
So a few years go by. I'm super curious about the Victory signing, just because of their history with in the 90s with Hatebreed and Earth Crisis, and then Thursday, Taking Back Sunday, early 2000s, and you guys come in 2010. Were you a fan of the label? And I'm curious how that all came about.
How did that come about? Well, with our with our fourth record, Our Long Road Home, that was sort of a Velvet Hammer imprint with Atlantic, and that album just did not do very well. I think at one point it was like we had sold like 37,000 records the first week, and then we had like 20,000 records returned or something like that.
Oh wow.
Something awful like that. We're just like, really, like, oh man, it just didn't click with people for whatever reason. And so we were, and that's when we got dropped right before Christmas by Atlantic Records. Thanks, guys. And so we were sort of floundering. We weren't sure what we were gonna do. And I think, if I remember, we had signed with some other manager that happened to know Victory, and that's just how it worked out. It wasn't like we went through a big list or had a big anything. We just didn't know what the hell we were doing and where to go, and they were willing to be a home for us.
Yep.
So it worked out. We met Tony several times. He was always great to us, Tony Brummel, and we had a good time on Victory.
When you weren't ready to be done, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you had more in the tank, and clearly,
Yeah,
I mean, you're still a band. So.
Fractured came out of that. We had on Plead the Fifth, and I felt they pushed hard to try to make that a bigger song. We got some pretty good tours out of that label, but yeah, I mean they're not they're not one of these huge labels, and they were sort of their business model was more. If I'm remembering right, I could be, but something like package a bunch of bands, similar bands together, and just put them all on the road together and see what happens. And
yep.
But when you do that, the money's not really there.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were getting older. So, we had, some of the guys had kids at the time, and I turned down a lot of those kinds of tours. For good or for bad, I was just like, we can't do that. We're not going to be third on this bill. We're not going to be second on this bill, or we're not. I mean, not that I'm unwilling to be an opener. For sure, we'll be an opener, but it's got to be appropriate, and it's got to be either the right exposure or the right amount of money. And if it doesn't help us, and we're just one of four bands all around the same size, but it just didn't make sense.
I mean, that works when you're 20 because you're getting exposure, and you're not family at home, you're not all that stuff. That makes sense. But when you're, have you been around a little while, that's tough because the financials just don't work. I mean, we've heard numerous stories from people where the financials didn't work at 20, but you just made it work because it was just you. So
exactly, you can make it work a lot easier then. And I misspoke. That was more with TKO, our booking agent at the time. Not with that wasn't a Victory call. That was more when we were working with TKO. Yeah.
It also seems like it might be like, there's always that equilibrium. It's like you're with Atlantic, there's pressure, you're touring all the time, you're writing while you're on the road. You're with Victory, you can kind of take your time a little bit more maybe in the writing process. Is it not so as restrictive?
Yeah, well, neither one was restrictive. The difference with Victory was we just stayed home. Once we did Our Long Road Home at home, which is sort of where that title came from, with producer Tim Paddlin, who we ended up doing the next 3 records with, and we love working with him. He had a studio called The Loft, and it was just down the street from us, and so we can just go down there and record. And I think that's why Our Long Road Home's kind of on the softer side, I would say, just because it was definitely a more relaxed environment. And then with Plead the Fifth, we consciously tried to go, a little heavier and back to our roots.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so and also being on Victory Records, you want to kind of come out with a little bit heavier. And I don't know if you guys remember Plead the Fifth, but that's one that opens with Now Rise, where like I've heard from fans where they almost busted their speakers.
Nice.
It just comes in like at 10. It's just like blah in your face.
Yep. So you put a single out last year, and that puts you at 23 years. This is 24 years as a band. There's still some stuff going on. You guys are still kind of kicking the tires a little bit.
Well, what single did we put out last year?
Oh, it looks like you've got a single here called Stay Away.
Okay, so that was I thought that might be what you were talking about. Stay Away is actually from I want to say Blue Sky Research. Some, when you do these songs for people, these B-sides and all these for our old records,
Yep.
they can kind of release that however the hell they want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And so they sat on that for a long
That's
time.
why.
I've had several people say that to me. Yeah, that one came out. One called, I want to say Free came out, and
Okay.
just some weird B-sides thing.
I was
idea
really
where
just
that
trying
came
to tie it back to almost 25 years
Yeah.
of Taproot. That's really
No,
where I
I
was trying to go
understand
with that.
from. But that being said,
Yeah.
I'm a family man now. I'm not, I've got, I play a lot of acoustic guitar, and I've got my kid plays drums, and I'll play bass with them.
Nice.
But that's about the extent of me rocking out these days. But our singer is working on the newest Taproot record, and Steve's always been the mastermind behind it all. I mean, he's never really needed any of us, to be honest. I mean, other than to have other people playing all this, but he's always, I mean, he can play any instrument. He can pick up something he's never touched before and make it sound pretty damn good.
Amazing.
He's one of these guys that just he's really, really talented.
Mhm.
And he's working on the newest Taproot record, just by himself. He's got family too, so he gets up like 5 a.m, I think, and works for a couple hours, and
Wow.
then goes to work and does it all over again. Does that 3, 4, 5 times a week, and he's pretty much doing the whole thing himself, writing, recording, producing. But I am so excited for this record, man.
Nice.
He demoed 2 songs probably like 2 or 3 years ago that I'm like, these are 2 of the best Taproot songs I've ever heard.
Wow.
And
It's awesome.
yeah, and so I'm really excited to see what he does, because he's so creative, and if he gets those right, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe it hits, maybe it does something well for him. I mean, I've got a real job that I can support my family and stuff, but he's struggling a little bit. I hope he can get something that really, really brings him something.
Nice.
Well, I'm excited, man. It's some cool stuff.
If you're excited, I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same, yeah.
How does that feel, like having the name still be out there when you spent so much time with it, and to not be a part of it anymore?
Oh, he has my blessing 100%. And if it comes out where, we because trying to tour these days, it just ain't happening for any of us. We just don't have the time. We don't have if again, for some reason, something works out where the money's there, even then, I don't think I would go. I have family. I have wife and kids. I've always known, for me, why I never thought I was going to get married when I was in Taproot was because I could never. I know how I feel about kids. I love kids. If I had my own kid, I would never want to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I have my own kids, I know I never want to leave.
Yep.
So to try to hold the band back because I don't want to I can't be a part of it now. It just seems silly. I've told Steve, I'm like, here's talk to this bass player, man. He's really good. Talk to this guy. He's really good. Have this guy record on the record because I can't be up there to do it. But Steve just does it on his own anyway, I think. But yeah, he's got my full blessing. And yeah, I don't think he's going to be touring anytime really. But if anything, we're going to play maybe a show here and there, a couple shows a year, something like that. I don't know what it would look like. But I would like to help him, when he does release the CD. Maybe we'll do a CD release party at like the Machine Shop up in Flint, Michigan or something.
Nice.
One of our hometown spots.
That's cool. I mean, the thing that I think a lot of people forget is that we're all people. Like, you're in a band, the band takes on a life of its own. People don't really think about, okay, that person's going home to a family, or that person's going home to, they maybe made $150 at their show tonight, and they need way more than that to keep the roof over their head and have food on the table and that stuff. So it's at the end of the day, to be cool with stepping back and allowing the name to go on, and be happy with where you're at. And with all the work that you've done that's behind you, that's awesome. That people can go back and listen to today, tomorrow, the next 25 years if they want to. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, and I mean, the name's just a name, and I think I've always felt like Steve was the heart of it anyway. So I would if it was just me as Taproot, I would feel weird.
Right.
Fair.
If like Steve had quit and Mike had quit and Jared had quit and it was just me, yeah, that would be a little strange. Or any other version of that. Like that's the only way it can still to me still be called Taproot and move on. Steve has to be a part of it.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear it from you too, because I mean, as fans in the show, in the crowd, like you can almost tell if you're like a real nerd, you know when there's a band up there or a member up there that doesn't want to be there. So I'd almost rather have someone bow out than be up there faking it the whole time, because you just know it's like we're all human. We know that it's not presented in the way that it should be, or man, this guy is just bummed to be here. And you might even meet the guy and be like, yeah, dude, it is what it is. You know, you can tell that it's run its course, and I'd almost rather have someone bow out, as much as I want to see like the original lineup,
right,
than have someone fake it, you know?
Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, I've always loved playing, so I don't think if I'm ever up there that I'm going to be faking it. It's just such a fun experience, unlike anything I've ever done. You know, I was always a shy kid, still hate being in front of people other than playing in a band.
I was going to say,
if I have to talk, if I have to give a speech or talk in any sort of way, or even just be up in front of people, I'm not comfortable. But put a bass on me and I'm good to go.
Nice. Well, you've been pretty comfortable here, and we appreciate you for that. This has been a great conversation, man.
I was looking forward to this because, like I said, I've listened to a few of your podcasts after you guys reached out to me. You know, I listened to the Incubus one, I listened to the 311 one, the Peanut from 311, and just bringing back memories. You know, so I'm so family now. Yep. You know, I've got a 7 to 3 job, and you know, my weekends are kids, my evenings are kids, and it's essentially a whole nother life. Mm-hmm. You know, that occasionally gets brought up, but for the most part, it's just a whole nother life. So to kind of relive it a little bit and talk about it, it's been fun. Awesome. You know, and yeah, I appreciate you guys helping me bring up the memories.
Oh, we really appreciate it, and a lot of what you talked about transports me back to like Ozfest 2000 and where I was when Welcome came out and seeing Poem on MTV and all this. So, geez, yeah, you made our nights for sure. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of one of our worst video shoot was Poem, by the way.
I remember that.
Just watch us in that video. Watch the changes in the hair color and on our faces and with all that stuff, the soot and all the black stuff from making it look like a burned out building.
Yeah.
Like that got in our noses, in our eyes, on our hands. Man. Like that stuff was everywhere. It was not a fun video. Video shoots are not fun anyway. Yeah, those are not fun experiences. Play the song again, pretend to be playing as hard as you can, and then stop and wait and now go again. Yeah, not my favorite thing to do. They look cool afterwards, but they're not fun.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Quick kind of nerd bit. Taproot's Poem and All American Rejects Swing Swing were the first 2 songs I learned on bass.
Oh yeah.
And we just had a guy from the Rejects on the podcast last week, and now we have you. So it's kind of funny how the world works.
Yeah. Well, it's such a simple bass line too, man. I mean, it's that chorus. Everyone always talks about, man, that chorus, man, it's just so good. And it's just like, it's such a simple, but just the way it carries, you know, the feel of it, the feel of that song, something about it just seems to connect to people.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. All right. That was the end of part 1 of our conversation with Phil Lipscomb of the band Taproot. He was very candid about some cool stuff that we talked about way back on episode 30, right? I mean, Nate even played part of that Fred Durst voicemail on episode 30 back last fall, October or so. So yeah, man, he was cool. I really enjoyed talking to him. And I mean, you'll hear the second half of it in a couple of weeks and you'll really be like, wow, this guy he fits right in with us nerd wise. And you could tell with what we talked about tonight.
Yeah, it was excellent. And it kind of reminded me like throwback to that era, like 97, 98. He's a little bit older than us, but the way he was just describing it was like, oh, I remember those days. And him like frantically burning CDs and stuff. Like we can all relate with this same kind of time frame. He's older and he's in a band, but like we were probably ripping his music from Napster on a CDR, you know? That scene took me right to like Social Network. Like he's like using the college computers and everything and the infrastructure to like pimp the band. I'm like, that's fucking awesome, man. Like right in the heyday of, you know, pre-Napster, but not quite full on Spotify days. Cool guy. I didn't think we'd get someone from Taproot, and cool to actually dig in deep and get some answers that I've been waiting to get answered for 21 years now.
I mean, whenever we have these interviews and we chat with these people, like I have visuals in my head, but I feel like this episode was like the most vivid, and I keep going back to what you guys both said it already, like burning CDs in his college. You know, we did that for ourselves. So I was picturing like where I was in my house, or, you know, and he was just super candid. Like I honestly didn't think he would bring up the whole Fred Durst thing. Like I figured that might be hush hush, given Fred Durst, given the variable that is Fred Durst. But no, I mean, he was super open about it, and that was kind of the theme throughout the episode. And it was a throwback transport back to that time when they were on top of it, and he almost, kind of didn't think they were as big as they were. They were fucking huge. They were massive.
They were big. Yep.
Yep.
Very. Yep. It's funny you say the throwback to like burning the CDs. I instantly was brought back to my college library and trying to like print stuff, and how if someone was monopolizing a computer, you were like, get the fuck out of here, man. I need to print my homework for science lab. And, if I were to walk in on two dudes who are using 5 computers to burn their band CDs and then put it on the internet somehow, or like mail them out to people, I'd be like, what are you doing in here? What are you crazy folks doing in here? Because this is too much. But I love that story today. It's so cool to like think that that's how they did that. And at the same time, we're using the internet to their advantage, which in 97, 98, 99, nobody was doing, not a lot of bands, not a lot of bands were doing that. And for them to have that, idea at such a young age, like, we got to use the internet. The internet's going to be huge. Like, this is going to be big for us. I mean, I said it to him in the interview. Kudos to you guys for thinking of that, because you were way ahead of the curve.
I almost asked him if it was a GeoCities website. I should have.
Probably was. It probably was, because MySpace hadn't even really popped off yet.
Angel Fire, wasn't that the other one?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that conversation was happening simultaneously with when they actually got signed, and like their record producers hand cutting the tape. It's like,
I know, that was crazy.
It's like, what?
And that's why, like, we could ask the same exact questions to any bands we have on, and it would be a different story. And it just, I'm here for it every time. And when you get nuggets like that, and the burning CDs, and just being from that area in that that region in that time frame, it painted a picture, and it almost like wasn't supposed to happen, but it did, and I'm so glad it did.
Yep. And them hitting, getting to Ozfest, and obviously like playing Ozfest at that time for them. He mentioned, we're first stage, people are walking in, it's 10 a.m., 11 a.m., whatever. We're like just on. A couple people might stop and stay and watch for a few minutes and then move on with their day because they're there for the later in the day stuff. But it's still such a huge opportunity for a band like that. And I'm sure, I mean, he even kind of walked back to that spot and was like, yeah, I mean, we were playing with Pantera and we were fans of Pantera. We were playing with, Ozzy was there. And it's just like, that's got to be super surreal at whatever, 22 years old, that you're on Ozfest, and 23 years old, whatever. That's wild. When you were just playing college bars and driving up to Detroit to play shows at, small venues just to get your name out there, and now you're on Ozfest a couple years later.
Yeah, it's insane. It was like it seemed like it was very fast tracked, but also to be somewhat inactive right now, Phil said, to even think like, oh man, I saw Slipknot on a side stage when I was also on the side stage, and now Slipknot, is one of the biggest bands on the planet. To come up and just have that be part of your career, it must be so insane. Like, you say Twan all the time, like, pause this episode and pull up Ozfest 2000 and 2001. Like, those lineups are stacked. They're all headliners for the most part now. So crazy.
I was going to make that same point where, like, that's the fact that they were on, and any band was on Ozfest, that's cemented in history. So anytime anyone goes back and looks, it's like, no, we were there. And it's a, it's just something you can put on your resume. And I remember looking at those bands the other night, that list, and I was like, damn. And for a lot of those bands, it was at the peak of their tenure. So yeah, kick-ass conversation. Phil's such a cool dude. He definitely looks back fondly at those times.
I mean, and he's a music nerd, which you'll hear in the second half of our conversation with him, because we could have gone 3 hours with him. We make the joke, I think it's at one point, that we would have been the Joe Rogan music podcast, essentially, because we do talk to him for a solid like 2.5 hours, the 2 of it being recorded. So we get another one in the bay for you that you guys will hear in a couple weeks. It was a lot of fun. It's a great conversation. We certainly appreciate Phil's time and his candor as far as talking about the early days of Taproot and his time with the band, and all that fun stuff and all that stuff that he we didn't even know we would get. That's the best part about this is we like write up a roadmap, but we don't know what we're going to get until we start talking to these people. And when they're awesome, like Phil was tonight, like most of our guests have been, just about all of our guests have been, it unearths all these pearls that we didn't even know existed. It's so cool.
Yeah, so true. And also just a little teaser on part 2, like kind of behind the pod, is it flips it on its head when the talent starts asking us questions, and it really becomes a friggin' full-on bar conversation. Like, oh, we are just hanging out. There's no agenda here. It's just chill.
Yeah. And you might be able to hear my frustration with Nate because it went to the wee hours of the morning.
Oh, I kept buying.
Nate, bro, stop asking questions.
I kept buying beers for Phil, and we kept drinking.
I know. Yeah, it was fun. It was totally a blast, and I'm glad we did it.
But dude, I got to get home. Come on.
Yeah.
One more. Just one more, dude.
Yeah. You're calling an Uber. Give your keys to the bartender. You're calling an Uber.
No, that was badass. And it kind of confirms everything we've liked about Taproot over the years. Just genuine musician that is one of us, and we couldn't ask for more. So I think, we'll see everyone next week?
We'll see everyone next week. I'm not sure what we'll have. We're hoping for an in-person between the three of us, and then maybe we'll drop part 2 of Phil, or we'll drop part 2 of Phil. It really depends on how we're feeling. Honestly, you never know what you're going to get with us.
Man, that's a luxury I never thought we'd have. What are we going to do? I don't know. We got options. It's great.
We do. We do have options. So if you like us, if you listen to this, and this is your first time checking us out, or you're here from last week or the week before, man, we appreciate you. And thank you for listening. Go rate, subscribe, like, share, tell a friend, tell an uncle, tell another music nerd. We would absolutely love you for that. So please go do that. Check us out on the socials at Podioslave on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And we're on YouTube, and I will get that going again here in the next couple of weeks. Check us out on all those places.
Awesome. Thanks, all the pod heads, as Tone says. I will see you next time.
You're stealing my line too, man.
Oh, hell yeah. Cheers.
Turf Wars. See everyone.
Peace,
see you next week.
pod heads.